Oh, hey, I got an idea. Let's do a movie breakdown of Alex Garland's Men. You know, a movie that came out 4 years ago that no one's talking about anymore. Who am I talking to? I obviously want to say spoilers, clearly. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. I think it's awesome. I also totally understand why people don't like this movie, so we're going to get into that as well. This movie came out when I was working at Alamo Drafthouse, a movie theater here in Texas. I remember a friend of mine who worked there said, there's a scene that I don't really get. It's like really weird, and I'm not really sure what it was going for. That was their argument of why the movie wasn't really what they enjoyed. And of course, if you've seen the movie, the birthing scene. When I got into the theater and I was watching it, I kept waiting and waiting for the scene. I'm like, yeah, that's weird, and this is weird, but okay. Oh, okay, all right. And here's the thing. I had a theory throughout the movie. That scene was very important to my theory, and if it landed in a certain way, then I felt my theory was going to be correct. And if it didn't, I was going to definitely agree with everybody and say, what the hell is this? It did land in the way that I thought it was going to, which really made me enjoy the movie, because what it is to me is not a monster movie. It's not a traditional horror film. It is a non-trustworthy narrative film with that particular layer of what I like to imagine the movie to be as a mirror to the audience is what I want to get into ultimately in this video. Is if you thought this movie was bad and you didn't like it and it was gross and weird and it was not up your alley, you're right. That's exactly what this movie is. If you felt like I did, which is, holy shit, this is a mirror to exactly what I have felt in my life, and I feel very much seen, then you are also right. And if you felt, yeah, no, I got it, this is definitely a mirror to the situations I've had in my life, and I don't want to remember these things. I would like to leave these behind. You're also right. I've had all three of those experiences expressed to me, as well as my own experience when I've shown this movie to people. Alex Garland's Men, one of the most controversial, how is it put here? One of the most divisive horror films of the decade, which I think is true. It's pretty true. It's pretty true. I'll tell you what. So let's get into it. Harper informs her husband James that she intends to divorce him. James emotionally manipulates her, threatening to take his own life to punish her. When he strikes her, the classic sign of a good boyfriend, she kicks him out of the apartment, which leads him to jump off the fucking roof, which of course she sees, and that is one of the earlier moments in the movie, and it's actually addressed later on, where she sees him falling.
As he fell past, I was looking out, and he was looking in, and it felt like we could see each other, but I'm not even sure if that's possible.
In a way that doesn't make sense to how he lands, because he's looking in on her while he falls in her memory, but in the aftermath of him on the ground, he's faced away. And that's, I think, a very important moment of like, hey, the narrative of this story, which is the main character and how we are seeing the world through their eyes, isn't necessarily going to be true. Editor Newt here. I totally forgot to mention a specific aspect that I wanted to make this entire video for, which is that with the untrustworthy narrative, you get an aspect that I love, which is things that are visually happening aren't necessarily literally happening. They are visual representations of how the character feels in the moment. I think David Lynch does this really fantastically. I've got him up there in the Criterion Collection. But yeah, that's what I enjoy the most about this. Back to the other shit. But I also think that that's why a lot of people don't get the film, and I understand that, because if you're watching a movie and taking it face value, you want to believe what the person's saying, what they're showing you, and it wouldn't be really conducive to think that this person's lying to you. But there's a lot of films that have been coming out that have this style. Joker is a big one. His girlfriend is obviously a fake person throughout the entire film, and I think that movie is better if you think of it as one of these stories. He's making faces at the kid on the bus, and, you know, the kid's laughing, and the mom turns around and goes,
Please stop bothering my kid.
Sorry.
And from his perspective, that mom's being really mean to him, but in reality, is he being truthful to himself or to the audience? Is he really just being like, you know, shit like that to the baby, and the mom's like, you need to back off. So she goes on a vacation to try to forget the problems of her past, her boyfriend. She goes to a town that, as we start to see, have nothing but men that share the same face. And I like that it's not the face of her boyfriend. It represents to me that feeling of like, I'm going to go away and try to forget the problems that I've had, that I've been dealing with. I'm just going to try to ignore it. And certain aspects of the trauma that you have show themselves to you. That trauma continuously shows itself in things even when you're trying to distract yourself. One of my favorite moments in the movie is when she goes to the tunnel. I think the tunnel represents the future. It is the dark, blurry path in front of you where you think, you know, I could go into this dark tunnel, on the other side it could be brighter, but it'll be scary going in this tunnel. I don't know where there's holes to be tripped on. I don't know if there's things in there. And so before she even realizes that, she's just singing. She's just trying to enjoy the emotions that she is having while she's being gleefully distracted. And I like this because this is a moment where she, in her mind, is just singing. But she could just be like, in this tunnel, completely waking up, you know, an unhoused person who would understandably be like, hi! And start chasing after her. Which you can see he's got clothes on when he stands up. When she runs away, that is her running away from the future, running away from facing what she needs to, and she turns around and gets lost. Because you can't go back. Of course, there's no way you can go back. You hit a brick wall, and instead of turning around and continuing in the future like you need, she goes to the side and gets even more lost into this entire story. And that's where everything really starts to get weird, is this naked man shows up who she thinks is the guy from the tunnel, but I think it's not. The guy from a tunnel was just an unhoused guy, and this is her first representation of her ex. Which, I'll be honest, the tree guy, I'll need some time to analyze the tree guy, because I'm not really fully sure what he represents in the boyfriend, other than maybe just the pure fear of growth, maybe, since there's a continued imagery of like plants that he's inserting in himself. But anyway, the proverbial men of the film all represent different aspects of her ex. Jeffrey is the first person she meets, a nice, kind, caretaking, you know, sweet, lovable person that I think everyone can see in their partners, especially when they first meet them. And even, I think, after you have a breakup, there's always moments you're able to look in the past and see the nice parts that were there. And that's Jeffrey. He's protective. He tries. He wants to help the unhoused man. We've already talked about him. I think he represents general dread of Harper. And then you have the vicar, which I think is a really interesting character. I was, while watching this in the theater, having a hard time figuring out who he was for the boyfriend. And I think I've landed on the fact that he's like someone that you're supposed to trust, you know, someone that has answers that, you know, all of our partners can hopefully provide us. Is, you know, a good relationship, in my opinion, is providing each other things that you can both grow with, and also being able to be independent on your own and all that kind of thing. And the vicar is someone she turns to that has kindness at first, but then immediately gaslights her and does exactly what her ex was doing, which was gaslighting her. And there's all of that aspect that is really complexly mixed, where you have a feeling of security that's immediately ripped away and tainted and makes you feel really gross. That's happened a lot in relationships for me, where you have that switch of things were really fun and now I realize I think I see you for who you really are and I don't know if I like it anymore. And then there's Samuel. Ugh. Samuel is, I think, most clearly the easiest one to understand. He's the childish nature of the boyfriend, the just like, whatever, nah, I'm gonna kill myself, I'm gonna do whatever to fucking, meh, just the gross, absolute immature aspect of a grown man that should know better. Everyone in the bar, just like the policeman, collectively add to the feeling that there is something wrong here, and should I run or should I continue to deal with this? This is a moment I do want to address the fact that a lot of people saw this movie and saw it for just the name. They were like, men. It's a horror movie about men. Tell me something I don't know. Men are horrible. Ugh, yeah, right, I know that. That's not what this movie's about. That's the same thing as saying Jurassic Park is about dinosaurs. And yeah, there are dinosaurs in it, but dinosaurs is the delivery method for the hubris of man, flying too close to the sun. That's the true story. The difference between plot and story is, I think, something that is really hard to differentiate for a lot of films, and especially this one, where the plot is just what's happening moment to moment, and the story is the overall message. And so I think this movie the trees get lost for the forest, or the forest for the trees, whichever the way it goes, where people see too much of the particular details and don't realize that each one represents something specific. And a lot of people see it as a specifically male horror thing, where it's male against female, and I would love to say I disagree because I'm a very androgynous person, I'll say, without getting too into it, and I've dated people who are different, we'll say. A lot of them have been women, a lot of them have been under the beautiful rainbow sun. I think the trauma that Harper is going through is not specifically inherent to men. And I think it's a small view of this film, if that's as far as you get, which I will say there is a lot, majority would say, men that are causing a lot of horrific trauma for most people. But I think people are just unfortunately able to do that to other people. And when I watched this movie, that mirror I was talking about at the beginning, this is that mirror. I felt just because Harper is a woman and she had a boyfriend that this happened to didn't dissuade from how I felt, even though my relationship was in a different aspect, gender-wise, we'd say, but all the feelings were still the same. The birthing scene is very important to all of it, especially my theory in general about how everything represents how Harper feels about her ex and is trying to run away from it. No. The birthing itself physically is the feeling of trying to forget and being violently reminded, which happens constantly through the grieving process. Especially if you want to try to forget and not process, there's going to be moments where you're looking around and it's like birthing pains, I'd say. I'm going to assume, I'm not going to... And as the birthing continues and continues and continues, it makes you and her forced to look at it, to face her problems, to face her history. This is when I thought in the theater, it's very important how this goes. If it continues to be just birthing of Jeffrey and different versions of this man, I would totally understand how everyone feels about how this is just nothing and doesn't really land. But the fact that her boyfriend, James, finally walks in, and James isn't there to say sorry. He's not there to say that it was amicable and that he regrets what he does. He is there to double down and to continue to blame her.
My internal organs crushed. This is what you did.
Which isn't really him, it's not even probably what he'd even say at this moment. Who knows what he'd say? He's gone. But what this is what she feels about him, which is this constant blame for what happened. And it's not.
What is it that you want from me?
Your love.
Yeah.
She finally, in this moment, lets it go. She says, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And he's gone. That's the moment where everything finally leaves her. Her friend shows up and sees a crashed car and blood all over the floor, which I also think may not be there. I think the crashed car is there. I wouldn't put it past Harper getting in a car and freaking out and into a wall and then going back in and being like, geez, you should probably come over and check me out. Hey, look, I'm Harper. But the blood on the floor, I think, is the evidence that the work has been done, that the pain may not be gone completely, and it may be gone, but regardless, the work to process that pain has been done, and the future can now be tackled. So there's going to be evidence of that work, the blood on the floor, but it's not actually really there, and that's where I want to land. If you watched this movie and you thought, it wasn't for me, I didn't get it, that's totally true, because what this movie is a mirror. It is meant to show you what you want to see. And I don't mean that in a cheap, I'm not going to try hard to have a meaning here. The meaning is there. If it doesn't relate to you and your personal history, then that's fully right, and that's true, and that's your history. And there are other movies that hit you so harder than it hit me, because my history doesn't land well with Spirited Away or the Infinity War or any of these movies. I don't relate to them. There's nothing there for me, but a movie like Gummo or Ratcatcher feels very nostalgically horrible to me, that reminds me of my childhood in a way that I'm like, oof, I'm glad that's behind me. That's cool, that I'm a better life now. If you thought this movie was a mirror to you and it was, like me, felt seen, obviously I'm on that side too. But I've had an ex who I'd showed this movie. We got halfway through the movie and she was like, I get it. I just don't want to feel these feelings. And that is valid. I felt very offended because she didn't want to finish the movie, but it's definitely a challenging movie. And I think everything that's happening in it is not really happening, and nothing's real, especially hurt everyone's emotions. No, of course not. It's a good movie. I honestly think it's one of Alex Garland's best films, even though a lot of people don't like it. And I know people are going to say that's a contrarian opinion. And I'd love to hear your opinion. If you're in the comments being very mean and disagreeing with me, I'm sure you're there, and I'm just not going to respond. I'd love to talk to people constructively and have a conversation about this movie, because I don't ever hear anybody talking about it. And I'm going to pick up the camera. And I like this movie. It's a good movie. Like and subscribe and stuff. Do people still say that on YouTube? Like and subscribe? Like and subscribe!